Yes, welcome everybody and thank you for joining us on this webinar. On this webinar today, we're going to talk about how to unlock the secrets to a thriving franchise network and how to implement positive change. We're joined at WorkBuzz by some wonderful panelists who I will let introduce themselves shortly. But first of all, just to introduce myself, my name is Melisaan Foster, and I'm responsible for customer experience here at WorkBuzz. I'm also joined by a more familiar face in the franchise world at WorkBuzz. Sharon, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Mel. I'm Sharon, Head of Franchising at WorkBuzz. I've been part of growing the Best Franchise Programme and Awards now since 2013. So I have many years of experience of working with over 300 plus networks, I guess, during that time to help support and grow their franchisee engagement.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. So let's get into the panel, if that's okay. Caroline, could I come to you first? Could you introduce yourself, tell us about yourself and why you take part in this franchise programme?
So hello everybody. So I'm Caroline. I co-founded Pink Spaghetti PA Services 15 years ago this year. We franchised 12 years ago. I head our support team of 6 and we support our currently 52 franchisees. The whole franchising journey has been a learning curve for me. We've continually developed our offering over the whole 12 years. We continue to do so and plan to do so. We've taken part in the 5-star satisfaction survey for 7 years, achieving it for 7 years, which we're really proud of. We've got some really key reasons for doing that. We feel that asking our people for their opinion makes them feel good. It proves the relationship we have with our franchisees. Despite saying that we're always happy for suggestions and feedback, often people don't believe that. So the survey enables people to have a voice. It gives us a valuable insight into the areas of the business that we need to improve and develop. And we use it as a key part of our direction for the following year. As to what we are going to be doing, and we also use it heavily in recruitment. It shows the real story from the inside of the business and shows that we are who we say we are, and we are going to deliver what we say we're going to deliver, shows we're reputable and that we're good franchisors. It's been invaluable.
Brilliant, thank you, Caroline. A wonderful introduction. Rachel, coming over to you.
Hi, Rachel Brooks. I'm the MD of Swimtime, a brand that has existed since 1998 and first franchised in 2002. In terms of the WorkBuzz survey, we've been part of that for about the last 5 years. Didn't achieve it 1 year, but I'll talk more about that later. And what we've learned from it. But I think it's, for us as a brand, it's really, really valuable. And no matter how good your communication channels are within your business, nothing beats an independent, anonymous survey where people can speak freely and give feedback on a different level. So we're really proud to be part of the process. I really, really value it. And it's helped drive the business forward, particularly over the last 3 years, post-COVID, very much so. So looking forward to today.
Thank you, Rachel. I love the teasers as well. Oh, you can see this later, why we didn't miss out. Brilliant. Jo, coming to you for an intro.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Hello, everyone. Jo White, the founder of We Love Pets. We've been franchising since 2013. We're 100 plus franchisees strong now across the UK. We're all about continuous improvement, and for us, improving the brand, the network, everything we do is really important. So this is a brilliant way to help us put that improvement strategy in place, to hear that anonymous feedback from franchisees. And I think because it comes from WorkBuzz, an external provider, and it's not one of our usual internal surveys, they're just more honest and open about everything. So that feedback is invaluable for us. But most importantly, we act on it. So yeah, that's why we do it every year, for that really honest feedback, so we can continually improve what we do.
Yeah, Thanks, Joe. I love continuous improvement. It's so important, isn't it? And across all businesses, there's always ways we can always improve as leaders, as businesses, everything. And last but by no means least, Catherine, coming to you for an
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Catherine Hayes, Franchise Director at Revive Auto Innovations. We've been franchising for 20 odd years. We're a management franchise and we repair minor paint damage on cars. So our technicians go to customers' houses or their places of work to carry that out on a mobile basis. So we've been taking part only for 3 years, and we've happily achieved the 5-star satisfaction each time, which we're really chuffed about. And actually I wish we'd been doing it longer, that we'd started earlier. So if you're on the fence about it, I'd definitely say go for it. It just really gives us, similar to what the other panelists have said, it gives you that the franchisees the comfort that somebody external is looking at asking them those questions. They can respond on an anonymous basis, and it just gives us the comfort of knowing that the majority of our franchisees are happy with our support, which is great. So that's good for us. And it gives us the opportunity to really focus on what we should be doing for franchisees. What are their key concerns? What are their challenges? What can we help with? And it's enabled us to really focus our support in a more targeted way. So yeah, we find it really valuable.
Brilliant. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, everybody. What a wonderful panel we have on today, and hugely diverse experiences. And I love, Catherine, that you've just said, oh, 3 years, that's not that long amount of time compared to everybody else, but it's a great partnership relationship for us. If 3 years is a short amount of time, and hopefully that demonstrates how long Sharon's been doing an amazing job in this world, and is absolutely the face of our franchise brand and the Best Franchise Awards, how important it is for so many of you to keep working with us year on year. One thing that I'd like to discuss today, there's lots of questions that we want to take. We want to make sure that there's time for questions and answers at the end. So if you've got anything that pops into your mind, please do ask questions, and we'll come round at the end of the call, attendees, and cover those off. But the first one that I have is about the takeaway. So Catherine, you just said the perfect timing and almost set me up to ask this question, about that it's helped you understand the majority of your franchisees are happy, but it also helps you focus on their key concerns and where the challenges lie. So what have been your key takeaways from the reports that have helped you improve at Revive?
Well, there's been quite a few, and I think one of the key ones is that the fact that it is something that we can look at across all the franchisees, what they're saying, not just listen to the noisy one or two that sometimes go off on a tangent and you think you're doing the right thing, but nobody else is really concerned about that. So for us, a couple of takeaways, and sometimes it's not something that we don't know, but it just gives us that confidence to really focus hard on it. And for us in our sector, as I think with many, one of the key challenges for franchisees is recruitment and retention of their staff. So that remains a key challenge for our network. So we were already looking at it, but it just gave us a bit more understanding of what the franchisees were seeing in that space to focus on it. So we've taken a number of actions to help the franchisees. We've taken on somebody at head office whose sole focus is recruitment of technicians. So that's been a big help and support for them. And we've put on additional training courses. We've made it the key focus because our franchisees loud and clear were telling us that's their key challenge in their business. So we regularly talk to them about what's going on in the industry and what we're doing. And then alongside that, we've strengthened and added to our training team, because we do technical training at our head office. We've got an accredited training centre. So we've widened the suite of courses that we offer franchisees for their technicians. And we've introduced a fast track training scheme to train somebody from scratch to become a technician, because over time there's just a shortage of that experience and those skills, which you can only gain by going out and repairing cars. So it's giving them the opportunity to do that. And then other takeaways, I think one of the key ones is around communication, that sometimes the survey can show you that you think you've been really clear with franchisees about a key focus or a key part of the business, And then you read in the survey, oh, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that, or you can tell from that actually we're not communicating it in a way that they're hearing it. So it's helped us to think about the way we communicate to them, the way we support them going forward. And it helps us also to communicate with our leadership team. They see the report, they understand what the challenges are for, you know, the marketing department. We do the bookkeeping for franchisees, so the bookkeeping department. So you know, really looking at what it is that we're actually being told by franchisees, not what we're thinking that they're thinking. So it does really help with that. Our business development team actually presented at our last conference earlier in the year about, you said we listened, and it was just, again, hammering it home, you know, you said all these things to us, we listened, and this is what we've done about it, and not just assuming that franchisees will see that we've done something about it. Sometimes you've got to tell them. I think the thing with communication, there's never enough of it, and it's never quite right, and it's never finished. So it helps with our communication. So lots of real benefits from it. We keep looking back at what it is that the franchisees are telling us and how can we improve. And that doesn't mean as a franchisor you're going to do everything that franchisees want, because you've got to look at the group and the industry sector and all the wider implications. But I just think it really helps to understand what their key challenges are.
Brilliant. Thank you, Catherine. That's so helpful. And I think there's so many things that you've employed there, and that by listening to franchisees, that's helped you establish almost better support for them. And what I love that you called out is that sometimes we do have knowledge gaps, and as leaders we also have to be honest about that. We may assume that we know what franchisees are experiencing and even what their employees are experiencing, but you don't know unless you ask them to validate that opinion. And it makes me think about how, you know, the birth of WorkBuzz has really come from our franchise clients asking us for more and pushing us to go, right, okay, so that's what my franchise think, and my franchisees say, what their employees saying next, and how do you make sure that it all links back up and that we are making the right decisions as a business. And the communications piece, wow, does that resonate with me? I've come from an internal comms background, and you can tell them 10, 20 times, all in different channels and medium formats, and people still won't have heard the message. But it's so important that you utilise data to then understand where those loops are, which I love. Thank you for bringing that to life. Caroline, can I ask you to answer almost the same question? So what have been your key takeaways from the reports that you've received to help you improve?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, for us over the years, the survey has really given us areas to focus on in the year ahead, but also how to see how we've improved in the areas over the years. We've been lucky, we've always scored really highly for our initial training, our ongoing support and mentoring, and our financial expectations. But for us, marketing has consistently received a lower score. So over the last years, we've started to make changes in those areas, communicated differently, communication comes up again. However, the score hasn't increased to the area that we're in for all the other parts of our business. So this information has led us to take the decision to put some real investment into this area, bringing in an outside marketing specialist, involving a working party of franchisees. So that's all gone into place in the last year. It's really told us that this is right to be spending the money on and to invest in this area. The feedback has been really good. We think this has been really worthwhile, but we are going to see, because we will be coming up to our franchise survey in September, and it will tell us honestly whether we've made it, you know, whether we've done the right thing. But interestingly, I am actually putting out an additional amount of communication this month, because we think we're communicating all the changes in marketing. We think we've got everything right, but again, people are not using everything. So we're putting additional communication out, exactly the same as Catherine has said, to make sure that's there. But we will see exactly whether this has moved us in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you, Caroline. I think that's so important, how all this data, it's not just fluffy speak about feedback, it's about understanding that it can help you make those business decisions. build those business plans and understand actually this is where the investment needs to go, because we're feeling it across, and the fact that you've got years of data to demonstrate that that's the need. Brilliant to hear, and thank you for that. I think the only question is, will we probably come back in September and everyone says what and even anticipate the results change. Great. So we did receive a question, and I think this relates very well to the question that I wanted to pose as well. So Rachel, I was going to come to you and ask, what are your best practice tips as a franchisor receiving feedback? But I've also had a question through from Dan, which is about what happens to negative feedback and complaints that you find as well. So maybe if you can think about that when you're receiving feedback, but also if you sometimes receive negative feedback or complaints, what do you do?
Well, that will lead me on to sharing what it was like the year that we didn't get the 5-star satisfaction. So it was off the back of COVID, so 2021. So during COVID, we had been so open in our communication with our franchisees. We'd engage with them really regularly, made ourselves very accessible. And so when it came to doing the survey, I thought, oh, we've got this in the bag. No problem. And then we didn't get it. And I took it so personally, because I really felt that we'd bent over backwards in their time of need. We'd bent over backwards to be there for them. So it goes back to the point that we've laboured so far, which is communication. And we thought we'd made ourselves available, we'd listened. But what we hadn't demonstrated, which is what came out of the survey, is we hadn't put everything into action. Their perception was we had not delivered. So there was one franchisee who, in particular, even though the feedback is anonymous, there was certain language that was used where I thought, I'm almost positive I know who has said that. Why haven't they ever raised this with us before? And I thought, how am I going to tackle this? Because it's an anonymous survey. So I can't actually just pick up the phone and go, did you say, is this really how you feel? So I created a scenario with a number of franchisees where I posed a series of questions, and this individual was one of them. And it transpired that he had not communicated how he felt at all, and he'd got some real issues and had got totally the wrong end of the stick because he'd not read any of the communications that we'd sent out, and he'd not joined many of the online sessions that we delivered. So very quickly we established that our communication had failed. It wasn't two-way. Both he was in a very fixed position and we were in a position of, but we've done this, we've shared it, we've told you. And as a franchisor, you just have to suck it up. You have to accept that you're going through this process to help develop your business, to help everybody move forward, to make improvements, to tweak the changes. And do you know what? Sometimes you are not going to like what you hear. And you just have to accept it, because it's like anything, any feedback from anybody, you have to acknowledge their position that they're coming from if you truly want to grow. And you've also got to be very open to thinking about things differently. As franchisors, we can be led to believe that we have all the answers. We know better, we know best. Reality is we don't. Without our franchisees' input and them having a voice and questioning, challenging us, our brand is not going to move forward. So from a swim time point of view, whilst it was painful to hear it, I chose to act on it in a very positive way. And you know what? I was gutted not to get it that year. I really was. And I will, happy to share that. But then when we got it the next year, oh, that felt so much better. I mean, that meant everything, because I could actually demonstrate what we'd actioned. I could go through the feedback and say, right, tick, done that, tick, done that, done that. And the franchisees, I demonstrated it with them, exactly what we'd done. And that's what came out of the next set of results. So it can be done. It's painful. I mean, we changed a lot of our communications with our franchisees. We had more focus groups, working groups when we wanted to make changes. We've done things a lot differently with our marketing, and from the feedback that we've had this year, we're going to change it yet again because of the feedback we had through the survey this year. And one of the things that came out this year that I was quite surprised at, but having reflected on it, I'm really pleased it's come to the fore, because the lowest score for us was peer-to-peer support. And we create loads of opportunities for our franchisees to work together, and we encourage it in various ways. And we've got various mentoring systems that go on. And yet that came up. So it means that we're missing something. So that's my next focus for this next quarter, is to pick up on that and see where we can improve and demonstrate and keep feeding back to the franchisees. And you have to keep that communication going, like we've already said.
Yeah. It's been a theme, isn't it? This communications thing. I love it. It's so true. But that's really helpful. And thank you for sharing your kind of personal journey through that, Rachel. I think it shows a lot about yourself as a leader, and that maturity of, look, it is painful and it did hurt me to receive that, but it's taking a step back and digesting it and thinking at it from the other viewpoint. That empathy that you've employed demonstrates exactly why people would want to buy into Swim Time. And that peer-to-peer piece will be interesting to come out, because I think sometimes as a leader and as a franchisor, you can do everything in your power to set up the systems, to set up processes, but it is a human behaviour with getting there as well. And we do see some competitiveness across networks that do exist, and it's understanding what's the wider benefit sometimes that we see. But yeah, it'd be great to hear how that comes out when you go through that process. So coming to you, thinking about what your best practice tips are as somebody receiving, as a franchisor who receives feedback. And I think we spoke before, and you had limited times when you've had negative feedback or complaints, which is fab. But anything that you can do to bring to life your best practice on receiving reports.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of echoing as well what Rachel said. Totally agree. We sit here in our swanky office, new office, and we can be like, we think we know what franchisees want and what they feel, what they need, and we have the structures and systems in place, but the data doesn't lie, and that's what's really important for us. We get that really honest feedback, and because they can be honest, it's true. And then we act on that, and we just nail down really what's going on, how are they feeling, because we hear a lot from franchisees that are quite vocal, the ones that are quite active in our forum, the ones that pick up the phone and help each other, but it's kind of often the quiet ones that you need to engage and be more inclusive with, and we don't do that naturally. So getting feedback from everyone in the network, and I think our response rate is quite high on this survey every year, so we get feedback from almost the entire network each time. Then we can really drill down to what the issues are that kind of went under our radar. And then it's just putting that into practice. And we have an engagement strategy that we write every year. The head office team are involved in that, so are the franchisees. But this is a really, really important part of that strategy. What are the key things that are challenges for our franchisees, and how are we going to help them address that?
Thank you. And I think that's so important, that understanding that not everybody is the same.
No.
You're going to have quieter people, you're going to have those introverts, and when you're in a room with everybody else, they might not want to speak up, but it's a great channel for enabling them to have a voice. And that's so important, isn't it? Thank you. I'm just thinking about Dan's question. Hopefully that answered your question, Dan. Sharon, any best practice, just thinking about your role and what you see? I mean, I've seen sometimes where we have had people, and this is on both sides of work buzz, in terms of the franchise side and then engagement side, where we have leaders or HR managers that receive feedback that is negative, and sometimes we then have behaviours that we don't want. We're big believers in feedback is always positive, even if it isn't what you want to hear. Any best practice that you have from your years of experience working with so many franchisors?
I would just say, I mean, I've had experiences before of working with some networks where they have got negative feedback and then decided they're not going to no longer run the survey, which I cannot understand. And you see that's quite a common thing. And I think it is just like the panel have said here, is taking on that feedback, being mature enough to accept that positive and negative feedback and learning from it, and to continue getting the feedback on a regular basis from your network and working with them, and not burying your head in the sand, ignoring it, and then just moving on.
Great. So
Can I just add one thing, Mel? Sorry, on that very point. So when just before the survey goes out, we say to our network, you know, the survey is going to come out. If there is anything that you are deeply unhappy about that you have not yet raised with us, you've got a window now before the survey comes out to talk to us about it. If you choose to only tell us about it when the survey comes out, it's not really fair, and it's not a balanced approach. If you are unhappy, let us know as soon as possible. Let us know. If you choose to use the survey as a tool to try and beat your franchisor over the head and, you know, really stamp your feet, it's counterproductive. And I think if you share with your network that it can be destructive to use it as a tool like that, and it doesn't help anybody. It definitely doesn't help the rest of the network.
Great, thank you, Rachel. I like that. Kind of, if you want to air something, air it directly with us now. Opportunity before we run a survey, that's great, and you know, hopefully you do get things shared with you ahead of time rather than just shared back on the survey, which is fab. Thank you all. Right, I think that for the question, right, moving forward, obviously you're all here because you've won 5-star franchisee satisfaction awards, which should be highly commended, and congratulations to you all for achieving that. But in terms of your win of that, and I know, Carl, you've also messaged a question. We they're a brilliant brand as well. We had them on one of the last webinars, so we didn't think it was better to re-feature again and again, but hopefully on another future one we'll get you back on. In terms of just your experience winning, I think 5-star for 10 years in a row, that's pretty phenomenal as well. In terms of the panel today, what's one thing you would say your franchise has done to be a winner, and how have you used that 5-star award? If I come to Joe maybe first for that question.
Obviously we all use the 5-star award in marketing and to help with franchisee recruitment, don't we? But our recruitment is all about our existing franchisees. So we get new franchisees using our existing network, and we say to anyone that's considering investing in a franchise from us, pick up the phone to absolutely anyone in our network and ask them how it is and hear the good, the bad and the ugly. So I just think it really helps with that. And, you know, the fact that we take part in this survey and it's, you know, anonymous, we want to hear it. We don't hide under a rock. We want to hear absolutely everything from our franchisees. And we just kind of, we're all about transparency and then using that feedback to constantly improve. And that's what we're always thriving for. And it is painful to receive negative feedback. It is uncomfortable for a lot of our, you know, our team, because we care and we take things personally. We all do, we're humans. So when we do get that negative feedback, it can feel a bit uncomfortable and horrible, but it's so much better to meet it head on. And just having that culture across our, you know, across our team, our head office team, and that culture across our network where we are transparent, honest, and we will listen, is great for recruiting new franchisees, because they know they're always going to be heard. It's not one way, it's a constant feedback loop. And this survey is a really key part of that for us.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's so important, as in, you can't sell anything better than your own franchisees saying how great you are. It just speaks its own weight and volumes. I can see a hand up from Carl. Sharon, are you able to do anything with that hand? Sorry.
No.
Sorry. I don't think apart from raising the hand in the functionality in here is letting us do anything else. But if you want to raise anything in the chat, please do, Carl. I appreciate you've got a wealth of experience that can also be shared here, and some things that, you know, we can say. Okay, great, and thank you guys for answering that. If I ask the same question again, I'm going to go across everybody here, just because how you use it is very different, and why you probably are a winner will be different reasons for each of these brands. Catherine, if I come to you, what what's one thing you would say has set you up to be a winner, and how have you used 5-star award?
I think setting us up to be a winner, it's not the winning is the icing on the cake, but actually it's part of what you do on a day-to-day basis. So I think for us it's about consistency, and it's about really sticking to our values, making sure that our franchisees and our staff, all our support staff, really understand what we stand for and what our ambitions are. And I think that's really stood us in good stead over the 20 years that Revive has been franchising, and we've seen a lot of changes over that time. So we've had to change as a franchisor and grow with our franchisees, if that makes sense. So in terms of how we use the award, as Joe mentioned, it's great for franchisee recruitment because it does show it's an external validation of what we say we do. Somebody else is also agreeing with that, and crucially our existing franchisees. So it does appear on our franchise recruitment marketing, and we use it, as I mentioned earlier, we use it internally to inform our leadership team so they know what changes they want to make. And talking to the franchisees, so again, it's another way that we can say to them, we've got this training course on, we've done this, we've done that, but we do this survey every year, so you've got an opportunity to tell us what you think. Even if you don't want to say it to our faces, you can say it on an anonymous basis. Although, to be fair, I don't think many of our franchisees are afraid of saying anything to our faces. We do get told. So there's lots of ways to use it, and I think it just goes alongside everything that you do, because as a franchisor, you can't stand still. You can't sit there thinking, yep, we've done it now, everything's moving along smoothly, we are where we need to be, there's no more ambitions, because that's not how business works, and it's certainly not how franchising works. So I just think it really helps us. It gives us the knowledge that we need to take the steps that we need to continue to improve, because that's our aim and what we want to do, alongside our big growth ambitions.
Yeah, it's all about that continuous improvement. Great, thank you. Rachel, what would you say is your differentiator, and how have you used your 5-star award?
In terms of how we've used it, yes, you use it in marketing, but I think particularly for our head office team, it's almost part of our culture now. We've got this benchmark where it really matters to us that we achieve it year on year. So it gives you an even greater focus of how can we support our franchisees in the best way possible? How can we engage with them? How can we help them grow? Equally, how can we treat them still as individuals for their wants, their needs, their training needs, but then bring that together under the auspice of the 5-star franchisee satisfaction. So it does becoming really ingrained in your culture. And our team definitely live and breathe it in terms of it genuinely is all about achieving franchisee satisfaction, because with a franchisor hat on, if they're happy, they're successful, we're successful. And that's the beauty of franchising. It's a mutually beneficial relationship if you get it right. But that doesn't mean that there aren't lumps and bumps along the way, and you have to tackle some difficult issues. You do in business, you do in life. It's just part and parcel of it, isn't it? But the way we use it is more about driving the business forward. It is about the marketing aspect of it. It's really nice to get that acknowledgement, that pat on the back. Whenever we share it, when we've run it, it's a genuine, I get everybody on a call, the whole network. Did a little drum roll this year, set that up. Drum roll went on for a little bit too long, and then I went, ta-da, we've done it again, fantastic. But it generates that interest, and that bit of fun, which I think you need from time to time.
Yeah, I like how you've positioned it. It's not your reward as a franchisor, it's your reward to share as a network, isn't it? That's really important. Great. And Caroline, what was your one thing that you'd say has set you up for success, and how do you use your reward?
I think seeing the results each year, our ongoing training and support seems to set us apart, which we're extremely proud of. We are happy to listen to our franchisees, and we're fortunate that generally the feedback is consistently good. And like everybody, we use our 5-star award on our website, our prospectus, all marketing material. We talk about it a lot in discovery sessions with prospective franchisees. All our franchisees know that the survey is coming. We have a very high completion rate year on year. And as I've said before, we see it and use it as a key part of our offering for years to come. I think the word that Joe used right at the beginning of this, transparency, is absolutely right. It is transparency from within our network, transparency for saying we are listening, we do value your opinion. Our franchisees absolutely know that we value their opinion. We do say what we've changed as a direct result, or improved and modified, and transparency for people outside of the business looking in. There's the crystal ball. What is it going to be like? We are quite happy for anybody in the franchise network to be spoken to by a prospective franchisee. Often we don't need to, because these figures, it's not speaking to one person, it's speaking to the network. So I thought, yeah, Joe's word transparency just nailed it really for me.
Brilliant. Thank you all. Really useful, and just really hearing that you use them different ways. There's different reasons why you all think that you've got to the stage that you're at. But it just demonstrates that there's no one size fits all, and there's no one path to being a 5-star franchisor. One thing that I will do, we've got questions, but one thing that Carl shared, I'm going to answer live because I believe this brings it up in front of everybody. But I love this snippet, Carl, and thank you for this around the negative feedback and that negative question about receiving it. And Carl said he always used to tell all franchisees about any negative comments and used to answer in the communication about the survey results. It's brave, it definitely is brave, Carl, but it absolutely shows, one, leadership authenticity and the fact that you're leaning into it, which I like. It shows that you read the comments, that you cared, and your franchisee saying, wow, that is open and transparent, because it really is. And even if as a leader, sometimes you can't answer it, can you? Sometimes you have to just lean in and say, yes, this is something that we've done wrong or something we could have done better. That shows through authenticity and somebody that people want to work for. So I love that tidbit, and thank you, Carl, for sharing. Simon had a question about what part does the survey and results play in your franchisee recruitment process? I think some of this was answered by different people. So we mentioned a couple of different things in that last question. So Caroline mentioned about using it in discovery sessions. Catherine, you mentioned about using it in your marketing. Does anybody going to call out any other specific activity that you do in terms of your recruitment processes?
I think just what we mentioned about having that external validation, so we can say our network's brilliant, they're all happy, but this is just another kind of check to say, yeah, they're all satisfied.
Brilliant, great.
And it's objective.
Yeah, the discovery day is the ideal place to bring it up, because it's a conversation piece, and it goes back to what Karen and Joe are saying. It enforces the transparency, so everybody knows what they're getting into right from the get-go, and that's the logical place to use it.
Great, absolutely. And I think even not every survey wins a 5-star every time, as early into journeys, but there are still results from the survey reports that can be utilised for recruitment and showing how strong your network is in some areas. Sharon, is there any kind of best practice that you can share from your experience, just based on wider reports? Sometimes if you miss out on 5-star, there's still other results. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, if you miss out on the 5-star, it's very difficult with the 5-star. I think Dan just made a comment on the questions. I mean, we have a set benchmark data we have to stick to each year, and unfortunately, there are occasions where networks will miss out on just by a small, very, very small percentage, but we have to be strict and fair across who we give the awards out to. And all I can say to those that do, like Dan, is just those areas where you are just slightly under, is that the areas to work on and focus on to try and bring it up and get that award the following year?
Yeah. I think this is, Sharon's alluded to this question. So Dan's question about, we've just missed out on a 5-star award because we had a franchisee who said that knowing what they know now, they wouldn't do it again. So what would you do with that feedback? And I anybody got any top tips for that? Have you had that situation? Anybody on this panel?
I think going what Carl said in the comments as well, wasn't it? Where he just read out the comments and then gave the feedback would work really well.
Yeah. Yeah, almost doing like focus groups. Why wouldn't you invest that again? It's really important because Sharon's right, as in sometimes questions we have to be driven by data at WorkBuzz, as you can all imagine. But some questions like that could be more of a personal thing as to why they wouldn't do it again. But it's unpacking that, I think, with them, Dan, and understanding that.
Yeah, just to add as well, it probably is a personal thing because we scored. Our low score was about the well-being aspect, which wasn't necessarily about the franchise or the, being a franchisee. It was how they felt, especially post-COVID and so on. So yeah, we just got a well-being person in. We looked at their mental health, what apps we could get them discounts for and sign up to help them, lots of tips, and just looking at how they felt as a person and looking at mental health and booking in that mental health training that we're going to do. Just those aspects of it, I think, would help with the issues that he's had, because it probably is a personal reason, not anything to do with the franchise itself.
Yeah, you've got any issues like that, you've got to meet them, head on, try and tackle them, because it's not good for the individual. If somebody is within a franchise network and they don't want to be there, it's not good for them and it's not good for the network. So if you can work together, and if the best thing is an exit, that's the best thing. That's what you work towards together. Just because they're unhappy and they don't want to, they say they wouldn't reinvest again, or they wish they could get out now. Take some action. Do it. If that's truly how they feel, then you've got to go with it, because that is the best thing for everybody.
I think sometimes as well, you've got to focus on. If you're not hearing from a little group or an individual franchisee and they're not engaging with anything, that's a big sign that there's something wrong. It's not a sign for you necessarily to ignore it. And you can't always give all franchisees exactly what they want. You can't do that. Sometimes you have to do things in a different way because of the way the industry is, or other things come into play. But that lack of communication, that lack of engagement is a big red flag for me. So if you've got somebody like that, there's an assumption almost that if they're not engaging, if they're not coming to anything, if they're not talking to us, there's a problem. So do we try and get on the front foot with that before we hear it in a survey? Because hearing it in the survey doesn't always help, because I think Rachel said you might have an inkling who said something, but you don't know, and you can't address that specifically with them. So I think if you feel you've got some franchisees that aren't engaged, find a way of finding out what's going on if you can. Get them back in.
Great, yeah. We don't want prisoners.
Yeah, or let them go, as Rachel said. If they don't want to be there, then there are other options.
Yeah. I once worked for a CEO that said, you're on the bus or you get under it. Which I thought, a bit brutal, but yeah, it's important. I think this is useful as well. I'm just going to put Carl's answer up as well. I think it's just useful to share. It's like having an additional member of the panel. It's brilliant. Thank you, Carl, for sharing this knowledge and your experiences. But it's just part of the process to gauge the franchisee satisfaction. As Catherine just said, you don't hear from people, contact them, say hi, let them just know. The things that you'll hear from people when you just give them an open forum, phenomenal. And just be interested. There it is. Thank you, Carl. And then I've got another question from Simon. I think this is probably more of a question to us, Sharon, about, is there a direct correlation between 5-star franchisee validation and franchisee level economics? This is quite a difficult one for us, and Sharon's face is probably giving that away. And it's like, But because the way that we work with you is typically at a franchisor level, we will gather your data as franchisors and the franchisees. We don't necessarily have their economic data against it. It's absolutely something that we can do. And it's something that we do for clients that work with us in engagement as well. So a couple of them won't mind me sharing, but the likes of like Brighton Hope as an example, we work with them on their employee and their franchise pieces. And what we're able to do is look at the levels of their sites and exactly what's coming out in terms of customer and CQCs, etc. So it's doable. There would be a correlation, I imagine, but for every network, I would encourage you to come and talk to us about it if you want to have that linkage analysis. It's something that our people science team can work on. We just also need the data from you. It's also a thing that we can't make up ourselves. Anything to add on that? No. And then, Carl, yeah, that keeps on giving, aren't you? Recruitment well, make sure the logo is very clear and in the words have it to make it clear that it's an independent survey. X% complete it. We listen and learn to results. Ask the franchisees when you do your research. So important. So important. I love these, all these good hints and tips coming through. Are there any other questions from our audience? I feel like this has been probably the most interactive webinar I've ever hosted. So thank you all for this, because it's been a really rich conversation.
I'll just say something while people are thinking about it. I've just been thinking about it while we've been on this. And I think the survey is so important to find out what franchisees think and then to be able to demonstrate that you're doing something about it. And it's got similarities with what we probably all do with customers. We use Trustpilot, we've got a pro license, and it's not just about getting 5-star reviews, it's showing other customers that you deal with any issues in a polite and prompt and helpful way. And I don't think it does you any good to have all 5 stars showing, so customers are thinking, oh, that sounds a bit suspicious, is nobody unhappy? But if they can see there are a few poorer reviews, but you've jumped on it, you've said you're going to resolve it, or you've communicated back, I think that's really important. So whilst this isn't public, going back to franchisees individually, us being able to demonstrate that even as a 5-star franchise, there are areas that were more negative or less positive, whichever way you put it, and we're doing something about it. And I think that's really powerful for the franchisee network to see.
Absolutely true. As in, there's always room to improve something. Whether you've heard that from your customers, whether you've heard that from your franchisees, your employees, we can put that into practice and lead from the front in the right way. It's a brilliant way.
Yeah, and you've got to be seen to be doing it. It's not just enough to do it. You've got to be seen to be doing it as well.
Communicate, I think is the theme of today. Take one thing away. And then Carl, on your last comment, you were saying, ask potential franchisees to ask franchisee when they do the research on the survey. It means to them, it was worked for us. Brilliant, thank you. Okay. I think then there are no current questions at this point in time. So that will lead me to close this session. I have to say a huge thank you to our panel and some amazing insight and experience here that frankly no chance Sharon and I would have been able to make up by ourselves at all. So Joe, Catherine, Caroline, Rachel, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your experiences. They're invaluable to us here. And for those of you that are listening, or those of you that haven't made the session, we will share this webinar recording, so you've got a copy, and hopefully you can utilise it and listen back to some of the really useful hints and best practice tips here that we've shared. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, everyone.